Good afternoon. Who's excited to be here? Come on, can we get a woohoo, like a Ric Flair woohoo? Like, woo, awesome. Yeah, so my name is Gerry James. I work for an organization called Outdoor Recreation Roundtable. So we are a policy advocacy organization. We represent over 35 trade associations, which include ASA, American Sport Fishing, and includes MMAA, National Marine Manufacturers Association. And that's among others. We also represent like the RV industry, shooting sports industry, climbing, pretty much everybody we represent. And we bring all those associations together to advocate for policy together. And we're based in DC. I live in Kentucky though, by the way. Great state, bluegrass state. I've been working for them for over a year, and what I do, my job is that I'm the Together Outdoors Coalition lead. So Together Outdoors is an initiative to create safe and welcoming spaces outdoors. And so my presentation is just going to be talking about some of those barriers to entry and then what we can do about it. So like little intro on me, and is everybody hearing me pretty well? Awesome. So I am an Air Force veteran. I worked on F-16s as a weapons technician on the F-16. Tried to load missiles and bombs, fix the gun system. Played soccer in high school and college. Worked as a recreational aide at Lake Omer Thomas in Oklahoma. And I also have a brand I started called Explore Kentucky, which is an organization that promotes outdoor recreation around the state. So like kind of what I'm trying to show you all here, I'm a pretty outdoorsy guy. I like getting outside. But the biggest thing for me is that I like building community. And the foundation for me with my passion for the outdoors started being as a military brat. Because, the base was about, depending where we lived, 30 minutes from going, to the mall or going to visit my friends off base. So us military kids, we had to like make do and have fun on the base, which was like trails, fishing, running. Even, I remember, so my parents, they never really spanked me and my sister and my brother, but what they did do, we ran. So I remember, a memory of, I did something at school. My dad said, get the sneakers, and we're going to hit the road. So we start running, and I remember out running. We're at mile 1, and I see another friend, and they're being punished too, and we're like, hey, bud, what's up? And we're our parents. So anyways, that was, kind of my childhood, growing the military base and stuff like that. Some of the, they're being in a military environment, there is some insulation from what's going on in the civilian world. I don't want to say it's kumbaya or whatever, but it is like a melting pot because service members come from all walks of life. And so people are, have to work together to accomplish the mission, and then, I had folks like my mom. We worked in a helicopter unit, and then, I saw from, childhood, kind of like gender equity and, women not having to fill those traditional roles, which was really powerful for me. But even still living on the base, there was still things that I saw that, I saw my parents, when they took their uniform off and went off base, in some states, they were treated differently than when they had that uniform on. I also remember one day I was running around. I was going to a place where I shouldn't go. I was in this artillery field. It's a place like a range where they drop artillery and stuff. I shouldn't have been back there. It's probably like UXOs and stuff like that, unexploded ordnance. But I was just having fun. And I went down into this artillery bunker. It's a little observation post underneath the ground, and it's a little tunnel on how you get from one side of the range to another underground. They hadn't used them in years. And I remember seeing the N-word sprawled in this little bunker. It impacted me. I was in high school. I was like, man, this is crazy on the base, on federal government property. And it just tells you a lot, this stuff, even a lot of people will talk about it and say hey, this stuff is ended, but it hasn't. And so kind of the way my career has been shaped is around building community and helping kind of right these wrongs and stuff. So I'm gonna kind of jump into a little story. So 2020 happened, as y'all know. The tragic murders of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd. And I don't know how folks feel about it here, but it was a really awakening moment for our country to see, the injustice and stuff like that. And so in our state, in Kentucky, there was a big movement, and it sparked people to start talking about like these issues of racism and discrimination and stuff like that. So part of like one of the many things that I like do is I do like 5 million things. Is I'm also a photojournalist, so I was out there documenting the movement in Kentucky, and at the same time I was documenting the anti-vaccine movement, the kind of the militia movement, and I was just on the ground talking to all these different people. And it's like interesting, a lot of like people, especially like in Kentucky, there's a lot of poverty in our state, and there's a lot of like similarities between like our eastern side of the state, which is Appalachian, and then like, Louisville, which is our more urban, city, but there's such a divide. And I just like noticed that, and I've noticed that in my work. And so I kind of, was doing that 2020, documenting what was happening. And I had been working on like equity issues in the outdoors for a while, with events and all kinds of stuff. And then fast forward to 2021, some friends sent me over like LinkedIn a job like announcement for this Together Outdoors Coalition lead, and I was like, man, this is awesome. So it was basically about creating this coalition to promote safe and welcoming experiences outdoors. So I was like, Thor Industries, which is the maker of like Airstream, and like a bunch of other brands like but Thor, they make like Airstream, Dutchman, Jayco, and several other brands. They had put up the funding to create this initiative. And so I was like, let's take that pain, that anger, that division, and let's channel it into something positive. And so that's kind of been what I'm doing. So jumping into, the barriers a little bit, but I want to ground y'all. I'm a big Star Wars fan. I don't know who loves Star Wars in here. Star Wars? Okay, awesome. Love Star Wars. So, and our galaxy, Jedis aren't these lightsaber wielding knights, but it stands for justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. And I know like a lot of people, they get angsty when they hear, Jedi, DEI, inclusion. It's become like this like linchpin in our country. And but I want y'all to, if you don't like it, push yourself. Try to understand. I'm going to help walk through it and what it's meaning, why this exists. So again, Jedi, justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. Here's a quote from a very wise being, Master Yoda. I can't do the voice. I don't even want to try because I couldn't embarrass myself. Difficult to see, always in motion is difficult to see, always in motion is the future. Master Yoda. So what does that mean? That means like the past affects the present is built on the past. And that's like what like a lot of this work that we're doing while welcoming and experiencing the outdoors is built on. It's built on a lot of the legacies and things that have happened in the past. So I have like a few barriers or things that I've identified. And this is not a comprehensive list, by the way. This is just a few. So there might be folks on the floor that might be like, man, there's like an exhaustive list. But this is just some of the ones that I've identified. So settler colonialism, the complicated relationships between underrepresented communities in the outdoors, de jure and de facto segregation, and then representation and accessibility. So what does settler colonialism looks like? So we all know our country's story of, the Boston Tea Party and taxation without representation and all that stuff, right? It's very much so taught in our history. And it's like interesting to me that it's like something that's not as controversial. It's accepted. Like, hey, these folks were like, man, like these colonizers, they're taxing us without representation. They're across the sea. We're rising up. Let's do something about it. But when it comes to like, settler colonialism or in the way that land was taken away from indigenous people, folks get a little frustrated. But I just want y'all, this is an interesting map. So in blue, you can see what was indigenous homelands, and then it goes to the present. So look at that blue just disappear. And then in red, that's reservations. I don't know how y'all feel about that. That's really interesting. We're in, I don't know. I just want to let that sit with y'all for a second. And the interesting thing is, like, if you think about the name of our states, you think about the name of our rivers, our, geographic features, they're mostly indigenous names. But the people that create these names, they're largely were wiped out from these landscapes. I was trying to find a Florida-specific example, but I couldn't find it in time. So I'm just going to use my example that I kind of been using a lot lately is Yosemite National Park. So I used to be a big rock climber. Kentucky's like one of the top rock climbing states in the country, the River Gorge area. But if you know Yosemite, it is like, it's just become this like mecca for climbing. I don't know if y'all know who Alex Honnold is. He's the guy that free soloed El Capitan, and that means he climbed over 3,000 feet without ropes. That's a pretty impressive feat. Crazy, but pretty impressive. So Yosemite is like, I believe, our nation's third national park, and tons of people from all around the world go there. But let me tell you a little story about what happened in Yosemite. So for thousands and thousands of years, the valley, Yosemite Valley, was home to indigenous people, the Mariposa. And then when the California gold rush happened, the settlers kind of came in, saw the valley, saw its resources, and were like, we want that. And so they went to the state of California, and the state of California authorized a battalion of militia to be developed, and then they were sent into Yosemite Valley and started this war. And this war basically eradicated the Mariposa from Yosemite Valley. So after that happened, we fast forward the Yosemite Grant Act, 1864. Abraham Lincoln tells California, like, hey, we're giving you this land to create a national park. There you go. And then in 1890, it was Teddy Roosevelt finally designated it as a national park. And then in 1969, the last dwellings of the indigenous folks within the park were razed. So from a span from 1850 to 1969, a total wipeout of those folks. And that's one of the effects of settler colonialism. Another barrier is the complicated relationship between underrepresented communities and the outdoors. So I'm going to use my home place as example, and I'm going to tell you all an interesting story later because it's going to be really funny. So this is like where I live, Frankfort, Kentucky, which is on the Kentucky River. And it's a beautiful place, and this is where I go paddle. So there's my paddle board and stuff, and my surf ski. I love going out there. I've paddled probably like over 3,000 miles in that river, like no lie. But it's very complicated every time I put in on that river. That bridge right there, that's where a series of lynchings took place in the late 1800s. There's a little plaque there, and I think about that. There is a marina there, and I used to call it the Confederate Marina. Confederate flags ablazing and barking German Shepherd dogs when I paddle past. And so there's this internal dialogue that I have. I think of Bull Connor and Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, and man, is this safe? I know it's generally safe, but it's still those symbols that and symbols and what happened there that is complicated for me. And this is we talked to a lot of communities of color or a lot of other minority groups. There are stories like this that can be barriers. Going back in history a little bit, and I know I'm getting a little somber, but I promise, I'll pick it up. But we got to start with the history. So imagine 1919, it's a heat wave in Chicago. And, you're Eugene Williams, and your boys are like, man, it's hot outside. So they got together some wood and built a raft, and they put the raft on the river, on the lake, and Eugene got on the lake, and his raft was accidentally blown past the white side of the beach in Chicago. Shouldn't have, so what happened from there is that some folks started stoning him, and they stoned him so much that he fell off his raft and drowned. And this is what sparked the Chicago race riots. The police didn't really do anything about it. There's a lot of excuses that were made, but no one was ever prosecuted. And so there's these stories as people are trying to enjoy. And the reason why I brought this up in this space, because we're ICAST and fishing, is there's these complicated stories around these water areas. This is the Appalachian Trail, one of our country's most amazing national trails. So Rebecca White, right, and her girlfriend Claudia were out hiking the Appalachian Trail, and merely because they were a lesbian couple, it enraged this gentleman who ended up following them to their campsite and shooting them while they were asleep. Claudia was actually able to get out, but Rebecca was gone. And so I've talked to a lot of my friends of queer identities, and they said this is kind of why they will kind of self-urbanize or exist in an enclave, because it's they feel it's not safe in certain areas. And then just contemporary incidents. If you were to Google right now, everybody has heard about Karen stories. Karen and Ken, I don't know. I don't know if there's ever been a male version created, but so you can Google and you'll find these different incidents. Man terrorized campers. A guy just went on a hunting trip. I think it was earlier in this year. Ended up murdered in upstate New York. A family was having a picnic at a KO campground and going fishing, and they had a gun pulled on them by the campground manager. I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw the video, I laughed just because it was so absurd, because I've been fishing and doing that stuff a lot, and I just couldn't imagine getting a gun pulled on me. So there's a lot of stories here. I didn't want to share, but Emmett Till. So Emmett Till, if y'all know who Emmett Till is, he was, murdered and then dumped in the river. And so there's a memorial to him, and it's turned into a shooting target. So people go there and shoot it up. So these guys from University of Mississippi, and they're posing with the memorial sign to him with their guns and the bullet-ridden sign. And again, Emmett Till's murder happened long ago, but still this is how people are feeling about it. De jure and de facto segregation. And this kind of cuts into the thought, or a lot of the stuff is black and brown people don't get outside, black and brown people don't swim. And which is, as y'all might know, is probably not true. My dad, he was baptized in a river and grew up in the backwoods of Virginia. But there, if you look at it from a systemic perspective, there are reasons why, communities of color are not as outside as much. And some of it stems from this. So de jure is governed by law, and then de facto is governed by culture and tradition. So that woman right there is my friend, Dr. Nancy Dawson. She's standing beside the historical marker for Cherokee State Park, which was Kentucky's first and only state park for black citizens during the Jim Crow era, so pretty much up to the 70s. And so can you imagine, you're a taxpayer, nowadays we everyone, it's American to complain about taxes, where are my taxes going? And you're paying your taxes and you can't go to your state's, you can only go to one of your state's state parks. So I'm gonna show you all this map. This is from another friend of mine's, Dr. William O'Brien's book, Landscape Exclusion, Jim Crow, the American South. So this is a map that shows the recreation state park facilities available to black Americans. So I'm gonna pause here, but I don't know if y'all, where you're from, and if you're, well, this is mostly focused on southern states, but you can kind of see, it's interesting. Like I can see my state and I just see one. You look at Texas, Texas is a huge state, one. Oklahoma, pretty decent sized state, two. And the interesting thing about like Oklahoma is they had one park, I forget, I think it was a Lake Murray Park, and it was designed to be like co-race facilities. So, but it had separate entrances. And then the black entrance was below the white entrance so that the black beach area, the white beach area, white water area wouldn't be contaminated by the black folks being in the water, if that makes sense. So like if you had the black area above the white area, then the water would flow and contaminate it. So there is a lot of these parks that shared, they were designed that way. And I'm not making it up. This is in the marketing materials for a lot of these parks. If you look into like archives, they will tout this as like a thing. Another big thing is representation. As y'all know, like the way that we market like outdoor recreation, the outdoors has been traditionally like white, male, able-bodied, and so I just wanted to show y'all a few different ads. And this is from like the 70s through even like now. Now, I do know it's gotten much better, and we'll get there. But I just want to say, like, the reason why I brought up representation is because if you don't have someone that like looks like you, it can be a barrier. Like, for me growing up, I'm 32, so, and like, growing up in the 90s or so, like I had folks like, when I think about like outdoors or like active wise, it was like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron, Allen Iverson. There wasn't anyone that I knew of really that was prominent in like fishing space, outdoor space, and stuff like that. But as we probably know, there were people out there doing this stuff. It's just that when you looked in the brand's marketing materials, or you looked in like outside magazine or fishing magazines, you just didn't see the stories about them. They were forgotten. Another huge barrier is accessibility. And these are some things from my friend Siren at Disabled Hikers. So they developed these. So lack of descriptive information on recreational opportunities. So like, if you're someone that is disabled, you need to know like, exact details. Like, is this trail accessible? What's the incline? Are there rest stops? And a lot of like our facilities are austere, or don't have a lot of signage, or undertrained staff. It's like, I've been to like a Forest Service area with a friend, and we were trying to ask the staff, question, and they felt really overwhelmed. Like, oh, I don't know. And then like, that's okay, but we just need to work on training folks. Again, public scrutiny, lack of invitation, expensive adaptive gear, like, like some of the big, like all-wheel, all-terrain chairs are really expensive, or even just to get, a prosthetic leg, super expensive. I just saw on TikTok the other day, like for Nike, the little blades that people that are paralyzed, or they have one leg and it's a blade that they can run on. It's like for this little rubber strip on the wheels on the bottom, it's like $700 for this little rubber strip. And it's like, think about like how much like some sneakers cost, but $700 to be able to run. Distance from location is another barrier. Disability is viewed as an otherness. The body standards, fit, muscular, masculine, able-bodied. So like, this is like some things to think about. I'm hoping that y'all are thinking about. We'll go back and think about. Now, how we get there. This is what folks typically want me to focus on, They're like, Gerry, it's a lot of heavy stuff. Or how do we get to the solutions? And I'm always happy to get there, but it's just important to know the history and know some of these things. So how we get there? So I saw something like yesterday as I was walking around, set up, and I saw that American Tackle, they partner with Autism Anglers to create a new rod, which I think is really awesome. It's supposed to be more durable and things of that sort, and I just love to see partnerships like that. And this is some of the things that Siren from Disabled Hikers had came up with was, design and test products with disabled people, recognize the ways that folks engage the outdoors, train workers, think about how accessibility range is so different from different people. And think about like how everyone has access needs. Like everybody literally does. Yeah. So these are just some of the things, like I love seeing this from Oregon. They made like an accessibility travel guide. And then I really love this is, an accessible kayak launch in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, which is outside of Fort Knox. We have a lot of disabled veterans, and so they have developed accessible kayak launch in the local lake on Freeman Lake. And I've seen like a lot of, veterans and stuff out there using it. So just pretty awesome because it kind of like helps you feel independent, We all want to, feel like we can do things, and just little things like that can help people feel independent. Making transportation outdoor spaces more equitable, that's a huge thing. To go to some of these like grand landscapes and state parks and river areas, there's no public transit that goes to them. And so like if you don't have a car, you're crap out of luck. And so I've seen some really cool projects go down, like the White Mountain Flyer up in the Northeast. It's a company called Rigid. They have a van that transports people from downtown Boston up to the mountains. I've seen out in Seattle, they have this Trail Direct program. So it's like a public transit that takes people directly to trailheads. And then in Congress and the Senate, they're working on this Transit to Trails Act, which is, expanding infrastructure that takes people, connects, neighborhoods with parks and that stuff. Affinity groups. Affinity groups are really important. Remember what I said about representation and about how folks have always been out there. And these are some of the groups that are doing it now, that are really providing a space for people to feel comfortable and provide representation. So one of the groups I've seen, like I have a lot of familiarity with and friends with, is Hunters of Color. I was just with them in Missoula, Montana, at the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Rendezvous. They do a lot of stuff. They take mostly folks of color out hunting, and they help them with mentorship. So they mentor them, on their, how to buy a rifle, your bow, mentor them through their first hunt, and they take them out on experiences. So they're a great group. And then I don't know much about Autism Anglers, but I just threw that in there this morning or last night. But I just was reading about them a little bit. They're, trying to bring awareness about autism to the fishing industry. And then another group is brown people fishing, or brown folks fishing. So just thinking about if you're trying to do some stuff for a partner, think about some affinity groups. Making hiring processes, mentorship, and leadership opportunities more inclusive and accessible. So in order to really change the outdoor industry, we got to create targeted programs. So one of the things that something I've been working on, wanting to do for 5 years, and I finally pulled it off a month ago in collaboration with the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. So we created this thing called the Paddle Sports Leadership Academy. And so the goal was to transform leadership on the water, take communities of color mostly. So we sent out applications to different orgs like Centro de Hispano in Tennessee, different black organizations, different queer organizations. And we got a pool of applicants, and we basically took these folks through a 4-day academy. We taught them, how to paddle SUP, stand-up paddleboards, canoes, and kayaks efficiently and like with grace. So they all mostly have level 1 skills. And then we also taught them how to rescue from all those different platforms, from canoe, kayak, SUP. We also taught them how to rescue swim and everything. And then we equipped them with, gear, like PFDs and tow belts and stuff. So this is like, over this 4-day course, it was like rigorous from like 8 a.m. to like 6 p.m. We were like on the water, going through scenarios. I remember I'm not like a yelly person, I'm like a person that yells, but I remember I was like this woman, Cheryl, she's director of Parks and Recreation in Knoxville, and she was like apprehensive about going in the lake. And she's like a swimmer, but she likes swimming in pools, and she wouldn't go in the lake. She was apprehensive about it. So I said, Cheryl, I'm gonna rock this boat if you don't get out. And she wouldn't. So I rocked the boat, counted 3, dumped her out. And I said, Cheryl, run this scenario. And she did it. She rescued me, got me back up on the boat, and it was awesome. And so just programs like that are specifically targeted at those communities that you don't see in leadership is really, really key. And like I said, University of Knoxville funded that. We partnered with the American Canoe Association, and then we had some financial support from the Tennessee Valley Authority as well. Hook and Cook, that's another cool program that I love. Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. They, take people fishing, and they supply all the equipment, and then they also teach them how to like fillet the fish and cook it. And so they partner with like Outdoor Afro, and they also partner with the Hispanic groups in our state. And I just like love seeing stuff like that. Representation. I just learned about this guy, Emmanuel Fields. I don't know if he's here. I hope he's here. I'm hoping to bump into him. But one of our Together Outdoors Governance Council members, Kevin Williams, Kevin works for I think he's VP of Marketing Communications for National Marine Manufacturers Association. So he was telling me, he's like, dude, you got to meet this guy, Emmanuel Fields. He's like a personal watercraft fisherman. And I was like, I didn't even know you could fish off a PWC. Like I never really see it in Kentucky, but I guess it's a thing down here. But it's cool to see like representation, like, that makes people like want to get out there and like do it. Again, seeing someone like you, important. And then again, like I talk about reclaiming spaces. So remember what I said about like Cherokee or Black state parks, and what happened was when a lot of these state parks closed, or when desegregation happened, a lot of these parks were forgotten about. There's a lot of like, I don't know, what's the word, guilt. And so these spaces were closed, usually joined with the nearby like White Park and amalgamated, and then like the black side of the park was left to like rot. And so there's this like history that folks have like lost. And so, and me and Nancy Dawson, when I was like in middle school or high school, I think like 2005, 2006 or something like that, she got with some elders and people that had gone to the park, and they created a nonprofit to help preserve it. And they got the state to invest money to revitalize the lodge. And then a lot of those elders have since passed, and the organization kind of died off. And so I helped, about 5 years ago, bring it back. And we've done a lot of cool like events. We're working on a documentary now. We've held events there. We built a trail system there that honors the first park superintendent. So you can see there some of the director, the Parks Department had naturalists from all around Kentucky come to help build this trail as part of their trail building workshop. And what was cool about that, it was powerful and moving for them. They didn't even know about like the history. They just thought like, and it moved me too, because the park manager, you see this lodge right here. He had just rented the lodge for weddings. So the black folks, the elders, had lobbied the state to revitalize the lodge to preserve its history. But then capitalism happened, and they were like, this would be a great place for people to host weddings. So then it just became like a wedding venue for years. And so it moved me because once we started, revitalize the organization, the park manager, he's like newer, and he was like, man, I have been marketing to folks that this space is like pristine, has its own path or roadway. And he's like, I didn't realize like all this like history and like why it was like that and stuff. And so he actually said that he's working on removing it from being used for weddings and stuff and wanting to more turn it into like an interpretive center. So that was kind of really powerful for me to kind of like do this work and see people like changing and understanding more. But yeah, there's a picture from the trail we built last fall to honor the first park superintendent. So I've talked a lot, but do y'all anybody remember when I talked about that marina and the Confederate flags and the barking dogs? Anybody? Y'all remember? Okay. Well, I'm building a dock there now. So I started this youth stand-up paddleboard program, and I've been looking for, riverfront property in Frankfurt to develop it. So I asked around town, got a lot of no's because a lot of the marinas are worried about, powerboat traffic and then human-powered equipment being together. So word got out, and we got a hold of this guy that owns that marina we talked about. Well, it turns out, rest in peace, Joe, the guy that owns it now, his father passed away. So his father, before he passed away, he kind of turned into a party boy. And he was allowing his friends just to, turn down for what there. So Confederate flags and just, a lot of like, a lot of fun down there. I've seen some things, people stumbling around and stuff. Not like the most family-friendly place. Kind of like, I imagine it like this kind of like saloon in the Wild West. Like, that's what it was. So Joe has turned it around. He's developed, like you can see, a little snack shack. He's got a lot of the boats that people that weren't paying, just kind of like chilling there. He's got them out of there. He's cleaned it up, got the flags out. And he recognized, and we talked about it, and it was interesting, my friend Amelia, who I'm working with this project on, she's a white woman, and she brought up about the Confederate flags and stuff, and I said, Amelia, be quiet. I was like, don't, I was like, they're gone now, we don't need to bring that up, and she brought it up, and when we were talking, negotiating this stuff, and he turned red, he's like, yeah, he's like, I knew that was bad. He's like, my dad wasn't racist. He just didn't think much of it. And so it was just really interesting now. This space has kind of been reclaimed and built a dock and stuff like that, And that's where our little youth stand-up paddleboard program is going to be housed now. So if you notice, I've talked a lot about techniques or things that we can do to reclaim space and make the outdoors more welcoming. I just want to finish up with my organization, the initiatives I lead for Outdoor Recreation Roundtable. And I know some of y'all walked in a little bit later. So again, Gerry James, I work for Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, which is a trade association that represents several trade associations, including ASA and MMA. And so why I put us last, what we're doing, is because I'm acknowledging that all this work it already exists. All we're doing is taking the catalyst of things that happened, in 2020, a lot of the movements, and we're trying to figure out ways that we can amplify it. So here's exactly what we do. So coalition development. So Thor came up with the concept. It actually started at Airstream. Airstream's chief marketing officer, Molly Hansen, started with her husband, her kids are, indigenous. And so she felt, as she's traveled and worked through her career, she felt that she's seen the things they've been through. And so she kind of came up with the idea, and then Thor, since Airstream's a conglomerate, she brought up the Thor, and then Thor ran with it and developed the Together Outdoors initiative. And so they are a big funder behind the project. And the goal was to kind of create this outdoor inclusion initiative and stuff. And so we created a coalition. And so you can kind of see now, it's actually, when I haven't updated this slide, this little picture in ages, so we actually have over 150 members. And you can see like ASAs on there and stuff, but it's, from nonprofits to companies to federal and state agencies. So it's been a really awesome journey getting all these folks together to talk about this issue and also like work on it. Because a lot of folks will talk. I've seen like a lot of book clubs developed and a lot of like well-meaning but action. So another piece of our work is education and awareness. So y'all are part of this, movement right here. We're having a talk conversation, we're chilling. And then we just finished up in June an 8-month education series for all those people that you saw on that last screen. We had it was modules. So we went through everything from barriers to entry to equitable partnerships and giving, recruitment and retention, just a lot of different topics designed specifically for the outdoor industry to help educate them to make, more inclusive industry and stuff. The other thing, about awareness is like a brand. I was really, when I got the job, I kind of was against the notion of like an inclusion brand because I felt that it was like really performative, really like woke washing. But over time, I've grown to like, as we develop, work to develop the brand, the way that I kind of try to position it is like, this is like, hopefully people see the Together Outdoors logo as a beacon. So someone sees someone wearing it and they're like, no, that person has my back. That person's really cool. So that's part of like the awareness that we're doing. Inclusive Spaces pilot program. We're working with the Trust for Public Land, which is one of the country's biggest land trusts. They develop parks all across the country. We're working on this pilot program that will help outdoor spaces become inclusive. We're piloting this in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So things like, adding tactile maps to a space for folks that are blind, adding like really vibrant yellow stripes for people that have like low vision. I just saw something today, an idea about having de-escalation rooms at parks or de-escalation spaces for people that are like neurodivergent, where they can go and have an episode and be in private, or a family has a kid to have an episode and go in private. So thinking about like how we can make these spaces more inclusive. So we're, again, piloting this in Chattanooga, and it's gonna be like a laboratory where we're gonna test out a bunch of these different ideas and see what works and what doesn't work. And then out of that, we'll produce a toolkit that will be available for people to use. Then we have a resource hub, which should be launching here soon. So like I always talk about inclusion. It's an academic field. I'm an academic. And so in order to learn more, it's important to read or watch videos and stuff, listen to podcasts. So we developed this really cool resource hub where you can search like books and articles by topic, or books and articles, podcasts, and search by topic and stuff like that. And that should be launching by the end of the month. We have and then also we'll have a directory for like organizations too. So say if you're looking to partner with an org and you're looking for a specific like group to partner with, that will be loaded in here into this database. And then another thing that we're working on is a grant program that we're going to be launching soon. And this grant program is targeted at folks, what I call the trenches. So people that are in the trenches, a lot of like in the nonprofit world, it's an industrial complex. And a lot of the bigger orgs get the big chunk of money from the foundations. So this is more targeted, like I said, at folks that are in the trenches. They have, really, ground level work that they're doing. So we have about like $25,000 to $30,000, and they're going to be micro grants, and we're looking for orgs that their revenue is currently under 100K. They received fewer than $50,000 in grants in the last 2 years, led by or serves a majority constituency of communities of color or intersecting minority group. So again, and we're limited to the South, so because this is an area that's been chronically underfunded when it comes to inclusion efforts. And the application is super duper simple, because I don't know if any of y'all have worked for a nonprofit or have done grants that can be insane. They'll ask for like 50 pages of stuff, and then they want a logic model and all kinds of different things. So we've made it really super simple, and people can also submit a video as well. That's all I got for y'all. That's my contact information right there, and my social media handles. But yeah, any questions?
Hello. I was just wondering if you focus on fishing, hunting, outdoors. What does it all entail?
Say it one more time, please.
Do you focus on other things besides fishing? Is there like climbing, hunting, outdoor hiking, camping?
Yeah, so Together Outdoors is focused on like all outdoor experiences, so like everything. And then like our, kind of like mother organization, ORR, we represent everyone from American Mountain Guides Association to like Special Equipment Manufacturers Association to diving. So we're pretty like all encompassing. Any other questions out there? Don't be shy.
Hey. Do you have like a network of organizations similar to yours across the country? Or just because it sounds like you're very focused in this area, but I was just wondering if there's like more of a kind of national type of network.
Yeah, so I wouldn't, so I guess I need to adjust my deck if that bias is coming out. So I guess like the reason like why I talk about the South a lot is because this is like where a lot of Jim Crow and all kinds of things have happened. And also I live in the South in Kentucky. But ORR, Outdoor Recreation Roundtable, Together Outdoors, is technically, we're based out of Washington, D.C. And ORR is a nationally focused policy org. So yeah, we do. And we have like a really cool, I meant to throw a slide, but we have an advisory council. We have a governance council and an advisory council. The advisory council is made up of grassroots folks from all around the country that are doing this work. So like Siren from Disabled Hikers, Crystal Egley from Inclusive Guides, Ambreen from Brown People Camping, Jose Gonzalez. And these folks live everywhere from like California to like DC to the South to the Mountain West, everywhere. And then our governance council is more of like our kind of like board type structure. They're really diverse as well, and they live all around the country too.
Is there a resource, like a list of where I can find, or a place where I can find these things?
Yeah, so this is what I was saying. This resource hub is coming online here soon. So there'll be a tab right there. And it's really cool. I'm really excited about it. But we've kind of documented over 150 inclusion-related organizations across the country. And so we have them like there into this database. It's really cool. I don't know if any of y'all are techie but we're using like this platform called Airtable. And so it's like a spreadsheet on steroids. And then this platform is using a platform called Softer, which displays the Airtable data in a very visually pleasing way. So you'll be able to go on there, search for like, what keywords to find like a topic or an organization. Then there'll also be like a map feature. So you can find like organizations on the map too. And the reason like why that's important to me is because like a lot of times in the outdoor media, you see like a few key suspects always. And so this will help people see like, hey, this work is going on all around the country. Thanks.